Shapiro, Booba Shabuba over here has made a video on July 22nd, 2021. Sports Illustrated puts transgender woman, biological man, on cover. And I just wanted to go through this one real quick just because when it came out, I was like, I gotta cover this, but like I wanted to wait a bit because I just did like a Ben Shapiro segment. So I was like, I'll wait a bit.
Time when Sports Illustrated was supposed to be a sports magazine. Yeah, that was funny. Sports Illustrated. I was a long time subscriber to Sports Illustrated. I will acknowledge that as a religious person, I always took the option. You can do this of calling up Sports Illustrated and not getting the swimsuit edition, which was,
I just find it funny that Ben is like, as a religious person, women in bikinis and swimsuits gives me the absolute fucking shivers. I am afraid, my dick is limp, and I am scared of the booba. Like, I don't... Like, hold on, can we hear that again?
Sports Illustrated. I was a long time subscriber to Sports Illustrated. I will acknowledge that as a religious person, I always took the option. You can do this of calling up Sports Illustrated and not getting the swimsuit edition, which was, basically material for teenage boys. I would always
basically material for teenage boys. I don't know. I just think this is like simultaneously funny and sad because it's like, on the one end, he's like afraid of boobs and shit. And on the other end, it's like he's religious to the point to where he's afraid of boobs. I don't know. To be like anti-horny because of religion, you're just like suppressing the fun of your life. Like, I don't know. I think that's wonky.
call up Sports Illustrated and say add an issue to the end of my subscription and just don't send the swimsuit edition. But the swimsuit edition has been a long time thing for Sports Illustrated, and always basically it was hot models and body paint on the beach. That's always what it was. Well, now Sports Illustrated, because it has become another preserve of the woke, has decided that it is time to cram down on
a preserve of the woke. I haven't heard this one before. There's like woke preservations now. Special woke areas where you do woke stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Sports Illustrated is still about like hot models and beach stuff and body paint or whatever the fuck like he was going on about. I'm pretty sure it's still about that, but I don't know. Now it's woke.
Red-blooded American males a particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes. So there is a trans woman who has now been featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated. This is the trans woman whose name is Lena Bloom. Now, Lena Bloom has had surgeries and hormone treatment and looks physically like a woman.
Right? Well, he said it. He said she passes, and she does. She looks great, and she looks amazing on this cover. And we still have a hot model on the beach. I think this is still what Sports Illustrated is about. I think the fact that someone having an identity and being born a particular way, making this woke all of a sudden, is just like hilarious. I don't know. I just think that's like a funny aspect. It's like, oh well now it's bad. Now it's bad because there's a minority on the cover, and I don't I don't like this anymore. It's like we're really dealing with like the modern civil rights era right now. Like the current fight for civil rights, it's trans issues. Trans rights are what's on the line right now, and that is like the forefront of this fight. If Ben was back in time just a few decades ago, like he'd be saying the same thing about like a black model on Sports Illustrated. I he might as well. He might as well be doing that because it's like, oh, a minority that doesn't have a lot of rights and is discriminated against a lot in just the public space, they're featured on the magazine. Well, then that's woke, that's new and progressive and bad because it's new and progressive, so it's just like woke garbage. And they have become the woke preserve because they are allowing minorities to be featured. It's like, as someone who, I mean, I wasn't really a conservative, but for a little bit, like a couple weeks, I used to watch like a shit ton of PragerU, Ben Shapiro, um, No Bullshit, Sargon of Akkad. I watched all of them for like 2 weeks straight, and I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. All right, this is politics? Okay, okay. There's the SJWs. All right, they're bad. Okay, I'm like going through. I'm like watching, and after about 2 weeks of this, I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. These guys are actually just really, really biased, and they're making big complaints, big fusses, big orgies of just like fear and disgust over nothing. Back then when I was watching this, like gay rights were kind of like the front of the culture war, and all of these people were just like being homophobic and talking about, oh, it's the degeneracy, this is bad, it's woke, when they're allowing gays to just do basic shit. And um, at the time, I was like a cis, straight dude. Like I wasn't a trans girl at that time, but you know, I was like, oh, gay people, they've never done anything to me. I don't care. Like I just don't care. And I'd be watching Ben Shapiro be like, they're letting gay people get married. Oh my God. I am against gay marriage. And I'm like, okay, who cares? And then I kind of just realized that being conservative was just really dumb and that these people are very sensitive. And if you didn't get that, now you get that. Today we are observing Ben Shapiro be a special little snowflake.
Right? Which, by the way, seems rather transphobic to me. Because if you truly, Sports Illustrated, wanted to make the case that trans women are women, then trans women shouldn't have to look like swimsuit models. In fact, trans women, I mean, this seems fatphobic to me. Trans women should actually look like Laurel Hubbard. Why isn't Laurel Hubbard on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition? You know, the New Zealand weightlifter.
Wait, so it's transphobic because the trans woman looks like a woman? Oh my cat brain cannot comprehend that. I don't know. He's just trying to appropriate the woke language and trying to like turn it against it, but it's just not making sense. No, this isn't transphobic. It's just a pretty trans lady is just a model and she's being featured. Who cares? Move on. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You wouldn't make that argument that like, oh, a cis lady is on the cover. Well, cis lady, that's cisphobic because it basically says that all cis ladies have to look like models. No, that's fucking stupid. I don't know what he's going on about. Um, yeah, really. And then like the fat phobia thing, it can apply to cis people. It's really just pulled out of his ass, like just deep in his rectum. Like he really, moving on.
Who's now going to be weightlifting in the Olympics and has more to do with sports than Lena Bloom. I mean, why is it that only a trans woman who looks like a stereotypical swimsuit model in a low-cut bikini is now considered a fitting?
That's not a bikini, that's a one piece.
Figure for the cover of Sports Illustrated. Seems very, very fatphobic. very transphobic, frankly, because it seems to suggest that the only trans women who ought to be treated as women are trans women who conform to all stereotypes regarding women. I mean, Lena Bloom, my understanding is, has had all of the surgeries to fake female body parts. But as we know, that is to suggest that that is a requirement of trans women to be treated as women is violative of their norms.
No, I think you're just kind of outing yourself here as like, I mean, Ben seems to be like, okay, well, if I'm going to think of a woman as a woman, they have to look like a woman and they have to go through all these procedures to be seen as a woman. I mean, Sports Illustrated never said any of this. This is all just what Ben is saying. Like, I don't.
It is violative of decency. So truly, Sports Illustrated has not gone far enough until Sports Illustrated suggests that red-blooded American males get used to the idea of a trans woman who looks exactly like a man. Because as we know, sex is really all in your head. Gender is really all in your head. And the person on the cover of Sports Illustrated shouldn't have to be a swimsuit model-looking male masquerading as female. It should be a dude with twig and berries and chest hair and no fake breasts being treated essentially the same as a woman. That's when we know we've reached parity, I think. I think that's the really important thing. Now, look, the reason that Sports Illustrated is doing this is for the bleeps and giggles, right? They are doing it to push forward the quote-unquote social justice agenda.
The bleeps and giggles? This man really scared to say shit.
The idea being that if they push forward a biological man on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a woman, and if you say no, even if that biological man has...
Ew, I'm a transgender woman, and my dream was always to be loved and be accepted.
Ask your healthcare provider if Biktarvy is right for you.
Yeah, okay.
Had many surgeries.
I'm a trans woman. My dream was to be loved and accepted. You know, why is that the dream of trans women? That's like my dream too. I want to be loved and accepted. That's sad that it's like not a basic thing. We have to make an advertisement saying it's our dream to be loved and accepted because you know, we have people like Ben Shapiro out here, and the dumb fucks that watch Ben Shapiro, when Ben says it's transphobic what Sports Illustrated is doing, they're going to be like, oh, Sports Illustrated is transphobic and they're actually bad. And I'm actually pro-trans, but like also biological men are not women and all this shit. Yeah, it's a fucking mess.
And hormone treatments to look like a woman that is still a biological man. And if you say that, then this means that you are somehow transphobic, or if you, even though that is the biological truth, or that you're mean and vicious. Look, Sports Illustrated's a free company, it can do what it wants, right? It's a private company. But there is obviously a social attempt to normalize the idea that biological men who look like women are in fact women, which of course is a wild degradation of what it actually means to be a woman.
Nah, bro, women are just like people who say they're women. Some people are earlier in their transition and, you know, it's more noticeable that they're trans, and some people are much later on. And you know, this model is obviously like pretty much at the end of her transition, and she transitioned beautifully, and a lot of people do transition beautifully, men and women. For Ben to be offended on the behalf of cis women for trans women existing and being like, yeah, bro, I'm a woman. Like, I just think that's really silly. I don't think Ben really cares about women and their rights. If we were to look at like his takes on abortion and stuff.
Word with an actual definition. So it's pretty obvious what Sports Illustrated is doing here. But Sports Illustrated didn't stop there. So one of the other models on the cover of SI Swimsuit Edition is, of course, the tremendous Megan Thee Stallion, because of her tremendous history with sports. According to Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition, Megan Thee Stallion is no stranger to magazine covers, but the rapper and songwriter always dreamed of being on the cover of SI Swimsuit, which is a weird dream. She remembers as a young girl looking at the magazine and saying, one day, This is going to be me. A couple of decades later, the Houston native would have several Grammys under her belt and make history as the first rapper on the SI swimsuit cover. And she is the perfect fit. Amazing. Amazing. And then finally, they have an athlete on the cover. So who is the athlete who's on the cover of Sports Illustrated? The athlete on the cover of Sports Illustrated is Naomi Osaka. Now, you will recall that Naomi Osaka withdrew from one of the tennis majors after a blow up with the media in which she just wouldn't do her media hits. And the ATP, the Tennis Professional Association, they said, you need to do that, right? It is your job, part of your job as a tennis player.
I don't know what this is about. What Rodin says, Ben wants a non-passing trans woman on the cover, so he has something to make fun of. He really has no substance with the model other than she is existing as trans. Yeah, that's pretty much it. He's just kind of malding because he's like, oh, a trans woman is actually really pretty and beautiful and like a model. It just fucking mind broke him, and he has nothing really to say other than like, that's bad, and pull out that's transphobic out of the depths of his ass. Like that's really what we're dealing with here. I don't know what this is about. Is he going to talk about anything more? Okay, now he's just talking about other shit. I don't really care. That was Ben Shapiro. He really had to remind his audience that this person was trans, and he did it in like the shittiest way possible.